So hey everyone, welcome to Day 303 the Bible in 1 year. In today's video, we're going to be taking our text from the Book of Judges, and we're going to be continuing the theme of Samson's encounters and Samson's experiences and Samson's journey. And for those of you who haven't watched the previous video, I definitely recommend you go back and watch it. It's a really important video, just to kind of give you the backdrop of Samson and how he came to be at the forefront of the judges in Israel. But the last couple of videos we've been focused on Judges, and if you want to follow along with us in this journey, make sure you subscribe, because we've got a whole playlist of our Book of Judges video, but we've also got videos from before that from all the previous books like Judges and like Joshua, Deuteronomy, Numbers, Leviticus, Exodus, Genesis as well. Okay, so follow along on the journey as we get through the Bible one day at a time. So we're going to be covering 16, 17 and 18 in today's video, and let's just basically take it away. So it starts 16 verse 1. It says, "Then went Samson to Gaza and saw there an harlot and went in unto her." So he's just had this huge delivery through 1,000 Philistines, okay, and at the end of that battle he's basically exhausted and he's at the point of death, and he prays to God and he ultimately says, "Look, God, are you going to deliver me through this battle and then let me die off first?" And basically God miraculously provides water for him. And then the next thing we read about Samson is that he sees this harlot and he goes and basically has relations with her. Okay, and I'll just leave it at that in regards to detail. But one thing you identify about Samson is, and I'm going to produce another video, publish another video as well about Samson and his Nazarite vow. So look out for that as well. Make sure you subscribe so you get updates and it's the notification when that comes out. But Samson basically leads a life of just a laissez-faire kind of lifestyle in a lot of ways, where he kind of just decides certain things he's going to do, okay, which is really interesting anyway. But it's always going to be interesting just thinking about what God's stance is on it, and I look forward to just getting to heaven and actually knowing full context at that point about not only about Samson, his endeavors, but everyone, okay, and just, I don't want to say sharing stories, but just thinking about from that perspective, just how God has delivered all of us, and so many of us from different circumstances and different scenarios. Look what it says as we continue, okay? "The Gazites saying, Samson is come hither, and they compassed in and laid wait for him all night in the gate of the city, and were quiet all the night, saying, in the morning when it is day, we shall kill him." So word gets back to them, okay, to the Gazites, to basically just Philistines, that look, Samson's here. He's visiting a harlot, and they basically tell him and say, you know what, we're going to wait all night for him, and when he comes out in the morning, then we're going to kill him. 3. And Samson lay till midnight, and arose at midnight, and took the doors of the gate of the city, and the 2 posts, and went away with them, bar and all, and put upon his shoulders, and carried them up to the top of an hill that before Hebron. So they wait into the morning. He just decides and determines at midnight, I'm going. So he basically carries the gates of the city and goes about his business, okay? And he goes basically to the top of a hill in Israel territory, ultimately in Hebron. 4. And it came to pass afterward that he loved a woman in the valley of Sorek, whose name Delilah. And the lords of the Philistines came up unto her and said unto her, Entice him and see wherein his great strength, and by what we may prevail against him, that we may bind him to afflict him, and we will give thee every one of us 1,100 of silver. And Delilah said to Samson, Tell me, I pray thee, wherein thy great strength, and wherewith thou mightest be bound to afflict thee. And Samson said unto her, If they bind me with 7 green withs that were never dried, then shall I be weak, and be as another man. Then the lords of the Philistines brought up to her 7 green withs, which had not been dried, and she bound him with them. And what you're going to see basically, or just let me just say this, for the first thing I'll say is, So we start him of him reading. We start of him. We read him visiting a harlot. Okay, that's one thing. Previous video, what do we see? We see him in a marriage which ended in turmoil. Without giving you too much spoilers and too much detail. Now we're seeing he loves this woman. Okay, doesn't say he married her, but the next thing we're hearing from that standpoint is the Philistines have come and are enticing her and saying, "We're going to give you 1,100 pieces of silver." It says each of us. They say each of us, basically, will give 1,100 pieces of silver. And it's really interesting when you think about it, because I wanted to read a bit more. As I was reading, I started to realize, well, me reading more before I interject is highlighting that we get the context straight away, because it doesn't say at the top whether she agrees. But as soon as that comes, she starts pressing him. And after she starts pressing him and he gives her an answer, he says 7 whiffs. She basically calls the Philistines, basically. So you can already see from the get-go here, the first attempt, she's game. Okay, now look what it says next. 9. Now men lying in wait abiding with her in the chamber, and she said unto him, the Philistines upon thee, Samson. And he brake the whiffs, as a thread of tow is broken when it toucheth the fire, so his strength was not known. So he's basically lied to her and said, look, this is the source of my power. She's testing him, and he's obviously broken out of them because that's not the source of his power. He's still got his extreme strength. And she's now realized that, he was actually being untruthful to me. Then what does it say next? 10. And Delilah said unto Samson, behold, thou hast mocked me and told me lies. Now tell me, I pray thee, wherewith thou mightst be bound. So now you made me a fool. You've ashamed me. Tell me the root of your strength. 11. And he said unto her, if they bind me fast with new ropes that never were occupied, then shall I be weak and be as another man. So what does Delilah do in like fashion? Delilah therefore, verse 12, Delilah therefore took new ropes and bound him therewith, and said unto him, the Philistines upon thee, Samson, and lies in wait abiding in the chamber. And he brake them from off his arm like a thread. 13. And Delilah said unto Samson, hitherto thou hast mocked me and told me lies. Tell me wherewith thou mightest be bound. And he said unto her, if thou weavest the 7 locks of my head with the web. And she fastened with the pin, and said unto him, the Philistines upon thee, Samson. And he awaked out of his sleep, and went away with the pin of the beam and with the web. So she's just over and over and over again testing him, trying him, tempting him, whatever it is, however you want to put it, and he continues to lie to her and doesn't give her the answer. Okay, and at this point in time, the scripture's not telling us he's thinking anything different. It's just he's in love with her, and at that point, maybe he feels, well, I'm just going to say whatever I need to say to keep the relationship going. But what does it say next? 15. And she said unto him, how canst thou say I love thee, when thine heart is not with me? Thou hast mocked me these 3 times, and hast not told me wherein thy great strength. 16. And it came to pass, when she pressed him daily with her words, and urged him, that his soul was vexed unto death. So he's at a point where he feels like dying, because she's vexing him and pressing him so much to give her the answer. 17. That he told her all his heart, and said unto her, there hath not come a razor upon mine head, for I am Nazarite unto God from my mother's womb. If I be shaven, then my strength will go from me, and I shall become weak, and be like any man. 18. And when Delilah saw that he had told her all his heart, she sent and called for the lords of the Philistines, saying, come up this once, for he hath shewed me all his heart. Then the lords of the Philistines came up unto her, and brought money in their hand. And she made him sleep upon her knees, and she called for a man, and she caused him to shave off the 7 locks of his head. And she began to afflict him, and his strength went from him. So after many days, or after days of being pressured, he eventually tells her. Immediately, basically, she calls and says, look, he's told me everything. They come with the money. She gets someone to shave his hair off, and she starts to afflict him. Okay, and his strength was gone. 20. And she said, the Philistines upon thee, Samson. And he awoke out of his sleep and said, I will go out as at other times before, and shake myself. And he wist not that the Lord was departed from him. So, I don't know. You can decide. This is one of the things I'm interested in. Didn't he think when he told her this, at that point, she's going to turn around and test him again? Boy, to me, this story between Samson and Delilah, among other stories that we see in regards to Samson's journey, is the laissez-faire lifestyle I talked about. It's just free and willy-nilly, like, I'll do this, I'll do that. He's here shacked up with some woman. He's not married to her. He's telling her the source of his strength, and look what's become of it, of the situation. 21. But the Philistines took him and put out his eyes and brought him down to Gaza and bound him with fetters of brass, and he did grind in the prison house. So now he's a slave servant worker in the prison house, okay? Grinding the mill, basically. Howbeit, the hair of his head began to grow again after he was shaven. Now, this is interesting because, and again, this is something I'll probably bring up in the video I'm going to do about Samson and the Nazarite vow, because one of the scenarios in the Nazarite vow is there's different ways you can break a Nazarite vow, which is really interesting in regards to Samson's whole journey when you look at it in its entirety. But one of the things that will break a Nazarite vow is the hair when you cut your hair. And it basically says you can cut your hair, but that time's over. And if you're going to try and grow your hair again, then that's basically a new vow. Okay? So it's interesting that the scripture is basically saying his hair began to grow again after it had been shaven. 23. Then the lords of the Philistines gathered them together for to offer a great sacrifice unto Dagon, their god, and to rejoice, for they said, our God hath delivered Samson, our enemy, into our hand. And when the people saw him, they praised their God, for they said, our God hath delivered into our hands our enemy, and the destroyer of our country, which slew many of us. And it came to pass, when their hearts were merry, that they said, call for Samson, that he may make us sport. And they called for Samson out of the prison house, and he made them sport. Okay? So it's kind of like he's the entertainer. And they set him between the pillars. 26. And Samson said unto the lad that held him by the hand, suffer me that I may feel the pillars whereupon the house standeth, that I may lean upon them. So imagine this strong man at one point is now, not that he's necessarily just this weakened for a person, but remember his eyes have been plucked out. So now he's seeking assistance to guide him. Okay, put my hands on the pillars where I am. 27. Now the house was full of men and women, and all the lords of the Philistines there, and upon the roof about 3,000 men and women that beheld while Samson made sport. And Samson called unto the Lord and said, O Lord God, remember me, I pray thee, and strengthen me, I pray thee, only this once, O God, that I may be at once avenged of the Philistines for my 2 eyes. And Samson took hold of the 2 middle pillars upon which the house stood, and on which it was borne up, of the one with his right hand, and the other with his left. And Samson said, let me die with the Philistines. And he bowed himself with might. 30. And Samson said, let me die with the Philistines. And he bowed himself with might. And the house fell upon the lords, and upon all the people that therein. So the dead which he slew at his death were more than which he slew in his life. So it talks about there was about 3,000 people up there, men and women, that he's basically killed in one go. 31. Then his brethren and all the house of his father came down and took him and brought up and buried him between Zorah and Eshtaol, in the burying place of Manoah his father, and he judged Israel 20 years. Now we get to the next chapter, I will just keep referring through it here. Okay, Samson's gone now, and we're going into a completely different arc. We're not really going to hear about a judge in this particular situation here. Judges, the narrative in Judges is basically going to kind of shift. So let's keep going. 17 verse 1. And there was a man of Mount Ephraim, whose name Micah, and he said unto his mother, the 1,100 of silver that were taken from thee, about which thou cursest, and spakest of also in mine ears, behold, the silver with me. I took it. And his mother said, Blessed of the Lord, my son. And this is interesting. Let me read one more verse anyway. 3. And when he had restored the 1100 of silver to his mother said, I had wholly dedicated the silver unto the Lord from my hand for my son, to make a graven image and a molten image. Now therefore I will restore it unto thee. Now what I'm basically alluding to and saying is interesting to me is, it's interesting to me that in the previous piece of text we covered the Philistines promising Delilah 1100 pieces of silver, basically. And I'm not saying this to say this is Delilah here, okay, but it does stand out to me the fact that in verse 2 it says the whole scenario here is about 1100 pieces of silver, okay, which I think is, I don't believe in coincidences, but that just stands out to me. And it's interesting as well that it's talking about the son stole it from the mother, and then the son comes back to the mother and says, you know what, that money he was talking about, you talked to me about whatever, and you're looking for it, I've got it, I stole it. And he gives it back to her. And she basically comes along and says to him, well, she had this money and she'd wholly dedicated it to the Lord, basically. And she wanted him to basically build a graven image, a false idol, basically. So she wants to give it back to him. Then we get to verse 4 and it says, Yet he restored the money unto his mother. And his mother took 200 of silver and gave them to the founder, who made thereof a graven image and a molten image, and they were in the house of Micah. Okay, so she gives it to him, or she says she wants to give it to him and gives it to him, and he's like, no, he gives it back to her. Then she basically takes 200 pieces of the silver, whatever, out of it, gives it to someone who can make things, basically, and they make an idol, and it's in his house. Okay, 5. And the man Micah had an house of gods, and made an ephod and a teraphim, and consecrated one of his sons, who became his priest. In those days, no king in Israel, and this is a key verse that I've talked about as we've gone through the book, or key phrase as we've talked about through the book of Judges. What does it say? Every man did right in his own eyes. Okay, because we're reading about this and we're saying this woman here is dedicating something to the Lord, okay, and she's want to dedicate like an idol. So she goes and get someone to make an idol, fashion an idol for her, which is something God said not to do, okay, in the 5 books of Moses. He was vehemently against that in the book of Exodus. Don't do this. And they Moses recapped this for them in the book of Deuteronomy. Okay, same scenario. And it's fitting that it brings up again here that every man did what was right in their own eyes. Okay, it's just what they thought was right. She thought this was right. It says this Micah, the son of this woman, took one of his sons and made him his priest. Okay, it's all just backwards and not going with what God actually wants. Okay, and a subtle allusion as well. I covered this kind of stuff when we was in Moses books, okay, the 5 books of Moses. But also here I'll bring it up again where it says, in those days, no king in Israel. Okay, so it's highlighting to you that there's a king. There are going to be days when there is a king in Israel. Okay, so that's just something that for those of you who aren't reading this for the first time, you can pick up just by, if you've read other places in the Bible, you kind of can pick up those answers already. If this is the first time you're reading this, then I'm just giving you a little insight into and a foreshadow of what's coming next. Okay, and you're not really gonna have to wait too long. I'll leave it at that. Okay, for those of you who don't know. So let's keep going. 7. And there was a young man out of Bethlehem, Judah, of the family of Judah, who a Levite, and he sojourned there. And the man departed out of the city from Bethlehem, Judah, to sojourn where he could find. And he came to Mount Ephraim, to the house of Micah, as he journeyed. And Micah said unto him, Whence comest thou? And he said unto him, I a Levite of Bethlehem, Judah, and I go to sojourn where I may find. And Micah said unto him, Dwell with me, and be unto me a father and a priest. So Micah's already dedicated one of his sons to be his priest. Now he's basically saying to this Levite from Bethlehem, Judah, you stay with me because you're looking for a place and become my priest, basically. And it says, and a father. Be unto me a father and a priest, and I will give thee 10 of silver by the year. So every year I'll give you 10 pieces of silver, and a suit of apparel, and thy victuals. So the Levite went in. Okay. And just for some context, okay, I brought this up already in the beginning of this chapter. We talked about this with Delilah as well. They were talking about giving her 1,100 pieces of silver. The woman in the beginning of this chapter was worrying about 1,100 pieces of silver. I'm bringing this up just to give you context of how much that potentially is. Okay, it's a lot. Okay, in that day, because what is he saying he's going to give to Levi? He's saying, I'll give you 10 pieces per year. Okay, so that can kind of give you some sort of context into how much they were actually offering Delilah to make those decisions. So let's keep going. 11. And the Levite was content to dwell with the man, and the young man was unto him as one of his sons. And Micah consecrated the Levite, and the young man became his priest and was in the house of Micah. Then said Micah, now I know that the Lord will do me good, seeing I have a Levite to priest. Okay, so he's thinking, well, I just pulled this Levite off the street, I'm paying his wages, he's my priest now, God's definitely going to be happy with me. Okay, but again, remember what it's talking about. He talked about previously, everyone was doing what they thought was right in their own eyes. Let's keep going to the last chapter here. So starting at verse 1 in chapter 18 verse 1, it says, in those days no king in Israel, and in those days the tribe of the Danites sought them an inheritance to dwell in. For unto that day inheritance had not fallen unto them among the tribes of Israel. And the children of Dan sent of their family 5 men from their coasts, men of valor, from Zorah and from Eshtaol, to spy out the land, and to search it. And they said unto them, go, search the land. Who, when they came to Mount Ephraim, to the house of Micah, they lodged there. A couple of different interesting things. Obviously, you read about this in Joshua, and we picked up some of this stuff again in the early book of Judges. But one thing you need to understand is, you might be thinking, well, why did they not get a land? What's it talking about? Obviously, one thing you have to bear in mind is, predominantly through the book of Judges, the Israelites are in captivity. So one thing you have to identify first and foremost is the land they've acquired through the book of Joshua, okay, and Exodus and Numbers. When you go into captivity, okay, people are taking over these particular lands. Okay, so that's something you consider. They have to now go and retake those lands in order to acquire. Okay, so they come to the house of Micah, where this Levite priest is, remember, and look what it says next. 3. When they by the house of Micah, they knew the voice of the young man, the Levite, and they turned in thither, and said unto him, who brought thee hither? And what makest thou in this? And what hast thou here? And he said unto them, thus and thus dealeth Micah with me, and hath hired me, and I am his priest. And they said unto him, ask counsel, we pray thee, of God, that we may know whether our way which we go shall be prosperous. And the priest said unto them, go in peace before the Lord, your way wherein ye go. Then the 5 men departed and came to Laish, and saw the people that therein, how they dwelt careless, after the manner of the Zidonians, quiet and secure, and no magistrate in the land that might put to shame in thing. And they far from the Zidonians, and had no business with man. And they came unto their brethren to Zorah and Eshtaol, and their brethren said unto them, what ye? And they said, arise, that we may go up against them, for we have seen the land, and behold it very good. And ye still, be not slothful to go, to enter to possess the land. When ye go, ye shall come unto a people secure, and to a large land, for God hath given it into your hands, a place where no want of anything that in the earth. And they went from thence of the family of the Danites out of Zorah and out of Eshtaol, 600 men appointed with weapons of war. And they went up and pitched in Kirjath-jearim in Judah, wherefore they called that place Mahaneh Dan unto this day. Behold, behind Kirjath-jearim. And they passed thence unto Mount Ephraim, and came unto the house of Micah. Okay, so they're going up to possess this land. They come back to Micah. 14. Then answered the 5 men that went to spy out the country of Laish, and said unto their brethren, Do you know that there is in these houses an ephod, and a teraphim, and a graven image, and a molten image? Now therefore consider what you have to do. 15. And they turned thitherward, and came to the house of the young man the Levite, unto the house of Micah, and saluted him. And the 600 men appointed with their weapons of war, which of the children of Dan, stood by the entering of the gate. And the 5 men that went to spy out the land went up, came in thither, took the graven image, and the ephod, and the teraphim, and the molten image, and the priest stood in the entering of the gate with the 600 men, appointed with weapons of war. So they come to the house, or before that, and they say, look, this guy's got these idols in his house. You know what we have to do. So they now come to the house, they take all of the artifacts, okay, and it says, the Levite was standing at the gate with the 600 men of war. 18. Look what it says next. And these went into Micah's house and fetched the carved image, the ephod, and the teraphim, and the molten image. Then said the priest unto them, What do ye? 19. And they said unto him, Hold thy peace, lay thine hand upon thy mouth, and go with us, and be to us a father and a priest. Better for thee to be a priest unto the house of one man, or that thou be a priest unto a tribe and a family in Israel. And the priest's heart was glad, and he took the ephod and the teraphim and the graven image, and went in the midst of the people. So they turned and departed, and put the little ones and the cattle and the carriage before them. So imagine that. They say, look, you come and be our priest. Forget about this one man. Take all of his artifacts and come along and be our priest, etc. And he decided, okay, you know what, I'll go with you. 22. When they were a good way from the house of Micah, the men that in the houses near to Micah's house were gathered together, and overtook the children of Dan. And they cried unto the children of Dan, and they turned their faces, and said unto Micah, What aileth thee, that thou comest with such a company? And he said, Ye have taken away my gods, which I made, and the priest, and ye are gone away. And what have I more? And what didst ye say unto me? What aileth thee? So you've taken all of my stuff, and why are you saying to me? Why are you chasing after me? Why are you chasing after us like this? What's wrong? 25. And the children of Dan said unto him, Let not thy voice be heard among us, lest angry fellows run upon thee, and thou lose thy life with the lives of thy household. So they're saying, look, shh, be quiet, because you don't want any of the angry people in this group to come and quiet you and kill you and your family, basically, your household. 26. And the children of Dan went their way, and when Micah saw that they too strong for him, he turned and went back unto his house. And they took which Micah had made, and the priest which he had, and came unto Laish, unto a people at quiet and secure. And they smote them with the edge of the sword, and burnt the city with fire, and no deliverer, because it far from Zidon, and they had no business with man. And it was in the valley that by Beth-rehob, and they built a city and dwelt therein. Read that again, 28. And no deliverer, because it far from Zidon, and they had no business with man. And it was in the valley that by Beth-rehob, and they built a city and dwelt therein. So it basically seems like they're not having no sort of dealings with people. Okay, so they're an isolated community, easy to basically overthrow. If you overthrow them, they're not going to be able to call to Zidon or any of their supporters, their beneficiaries, the benefactors, basically, because they're too far and too isolated. 29. And they called the name of the city Dan, after the name of Dan their father, who was born unto Israel, howbeit the name of the city Laish at the first. So 30. And the children of Dan set up the graven image, and Jonathan, the son of Gershom, the son of Manasseh, he and his sons were priests to the tribe of Dan, until the day of the captivity of the land. And they set them up Micah's graven image which he made, all the time that the house of God was in Shiloh. Okay, So there's loads of things there. Well, one thing I will say is they went to spy out the land first earlier on. Okay, went to take Micah's priest, the Levite, took the artifacts, took everything and went, and then they went to battle. Okay, I think I said at the time they went to battle. They went to battle basically, right there and then. But it seems like they basically went to battle after. And on top of that, there's a couple of different things that are really powerful. So they're doing all of these procedures. We've read about this pretty much from the start of today's video. They're doing whatever they want to do. They're doing their own procedures, not following all along. And where we ended is fitting for the kind of point I'm trying to make. Okay, they had all this stuff, this graven image and this teraphim and all that, the artifacts, while the house of God was in Shiloh. Okay, so it's not to act or say like there wasn't actual correct etiquette for worship, okay, going up and down to the house of God in Shiloh, but they were doing their own thing. Okay, every man was doing what was right in their own eyes. Okay, so that wraps up today's video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Any questions you have, leave them in the comment section below, and we'll look forward to helping you with different videos in the future. Thanks and take care.